The alarm buzzed at 0600 hours, but Hannah was already awake. She had been awake for most of the night, reviewing her notes and preparing for today's session. Her small quarters on Kepler 7 station were cluttered with datapads and reference materials about the Velhari species. Today was important. Today she would meet them for the first time. She rushed through her morning routine, her mind racing with possibilities and concerns. What if she said something wrong? What if the cultural database had errors? What if the cubs were afraid of her? Humans were still new to the galactic community, and every interaction mattered. Every mistake could set their species back years. Hannah grabbed her work bag and headed for the door. The station's corridors were quiet at this early hour, lit by the soft blue emergency lights that never went out. Her footsteps echoed against the metal walls as she made her way to the research wing. She mentally reviewed the Velhari greeting protocol, palms open, head slightly lowered, no direct eye contact for the first 30 seconds. The research wing's door slid open with a soft hiss. Hannah stepped inside and began setting up the learning space. She arranged cushions on the floor in a circle, the way the cultural database had suggested. She loaded the holographic display with images of Earth. She checked the translator devices 3 times to make sure they were working properly. It was only when her stomach growled loudly that she realized her mistake. In her nervous preparation, she had completely forgotten to stop by the cafeteria. She had skipped dinner last night too focused on her work to feel hungry. Now her hands trembled slightly as she organized her materials. The station had strict meal schedules because of resource management. Breakfast was served from 0600 to 0730. It was now 0745. The next meal would not be available until 1200 hours. 6 hours away. Hannah pressed a hand to her stomach and tried to ignore the hollow feeling there. She could request an emergency ration, but that would require filing a formal request with the station's resource officer. It would take at least an hour to process, and the Velhari delegation was due to arrive in 15 minutes. She could not be late. She could not appear unprofessional. This was too important. Hannah decided to push through. She was an adult. She had gone without meals before during long research sessions. 6 hours was nothing. She would be fine. At exactly 0800 hours, the door opened again. Elder Voth entered first, moving with the careful dignity of his age. He was tall, covered in dark gray fur that was peppered with white around his muzzle. His eyes were golden and sharp, missing nothing. Behind him came 3 smaller figures. The cubs were beautiful. Kiv had rust-colored fur with white markings around his eyes and paws. He walked with confidence, his head up and ears alert. Tess was silver gray, more cautious, staying close to Elder Voth's side. Her eyes studied everything carefully before she took each step. Null was the smallest, with golden fur that caught the light. He looked around the room with open curiosity, his tail wagging slightly. Hannah performed the proper greeting, her palms open and head lowered. Elder Voth returned the gesture with approval in his eyes. "Dr. Hannah," he said, his voice coming through the translator device as a smooth baritone. "I present to you Kiv, Tess, and Null. They are yours to teach for the next 4 hours. I will return to collect them at midday." Hannah nodded, trying to keep her expression calm and friendly. "It is an honor to meet them, Elder Voth. We will learn much from each other today." Elder Voth studied her for a moment, then turned to the cubs. He spoke to them in their own language, a series of chirps and low growls that the translator did not process. The cubs listened intently, then touched their foreheads to his in what was clearly an affectionate gesture. Then Elder Voth left, and Hannah was alone with 3 alien children. For a moment, everyone was still. The cubs stared at her. She stared back, careful not to make it seem aggressive. Then Null took a small step forward, and the tension broke. "Hello," Hannah said softly. "Would you like to sit down? I have many things to show you about my home planet." The cubs settled onto the cushions, arranging themselves in a small triangle with Kiv at the front. Hannah sat across from them and activated the holographic display. Images of Earth materialized in the air between them. Blue oceans, green forests, snow-capped mountains, and sprawling cities. Null's eyes went wide. Tess leaned forward slightly. Even Kev, who was trying to appear unimpressed, could not help but watch with interest. Hannah began to teach. She told them about Earth's biodiversity, about the millions of species that live there. She showed them videos of animals, elephants and eagles, dolphins and tigers. She explained about different climates and how humans had learned to live in all of them. The cubs asked questions, their voices soft and chirping through the translators. What did snow taste like? Why did humans not have fur? How fast could humans run? Hannah answered each question patiently, enjoying their curiosity, but as time passed, her stomach began to hurt. It was not just hunger anymore. It was a deep, gnawing pain that made her feel slightly dizzy. She had forgotten about her hypoglycemia, a mild condition that required her to eat regularly. Without food, her blood sugar was dropping. Hannah tried to hide it. She kept teaching, kept smiling, kept answering questions, but her hands trembled when she gestured at the holographic images. Her voice wavered slightly. Sweat formed on her forehead despite the cool temperature of the room. The cubs noticed. Of course they noticed. Velhari were predators, and predators were good at spotting weakness. Kiv's ears flattened against his head. Tess stopped asking questions and began watching Hannah with intense focus. Nall whimpered softly, a sound of concern. Hannah was explaining about Earth's oceans when her stomach growled. It was loud in the quiet room, impossible to ignore. She laughed awkwardly and pressed a hand to her middle. Sorry, she said. Please ignore that. Now, as I was saying, Earth's oceans cover about 70% of the planet's surface, but the cubs were not listening anymore. They were looking at each other, their ears twitching in what Hannah would later learn was silent communication. Then Kiv stood up and walked to his carry satchel near the wall. Hannah watched, confused, as all three cubs went to their bags. They pulled out small packages wrapped in what looked like woven leaves. They brought these packages to Hannah and placed them on the floor in front of her. What are these? Hannah asked. Food, Kiv said simply. You are hungry. We share. Hannah's chest tightened with emotion. These were children, and they were offering her their lunch. She shook her head quickly. No, I cannot take your food. You need it. I will eat later. But all three cubs pushed their packages closer. Tess made a low, insistent chirping sound. Nall looked up at her with wide eyes that seemed almost pleading. Please, Nall said softly. Pack shares. You are packed now? Hannah stared at the 3 packages of food in front of her. Her mind raced. This was not in any of the protocols she had studied. The cultural database had not mentioned anything about food sharing. She did not know what to do. I really should not, she said again, her voice weak. This is your food. You brought it for yourselves. Kiv made a sharp chittering sound that the translator rendered as frustrated. Pack does not let Pack go hungry. This is wrong. This is bad. Tess pushed her package right up against Hannah's knee with her snout. The gesture was firm, almost aggressive. Take, she said. Please take. Nall did something that surprised Hannah even more. The smallest cub climbed directly into her lap, something Elder Voth had specifically told her Velhari cubs would never do with strangers. They were too proud, too careful about showing vulnerability. But here was Nall, settling his small warm body against her. Looking up at her with those enormous golden eyes, Hannah felt her resistance crumbling. She was so hungry. Her hands were shaking badly now. The dizziness was getting worse. And these 3 young creatures were looking at her with such genuine concern that her heart ached. Are you sure? She whispered. All 3 cubs chirped in unison. It was clearly a yes. With trembling fingers, Hannah reached for the nearest package. She carefully unwrapped the woven leaves. Inside was a compressed bar that looked like it was made from meat and grain. There were also some dried fruits that smelled sweet and spicy, and a small container of thick paste that might have been a nutrient supplement. She broke off a piece of the bar and took a small bite. The taste was strange but not unpleasant. It was savory and rich, with a texture similar to dried jerky but more tender. Her body responded immediately to the food, her stomach settling, the shaking in her hands beginning to ease. This is good, she said honestly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kiv sat down at her feet, his body relaxed now. Tess moved to sit beside Hannah's chair, her shoulder touching Hannah's leg. Null stayed in her lap, purring softly. It was only after several minutes that Hannah realized what they had done. They had formed a protective circle around her. She paused with a piece of fruit halfway to her mouth. "You are guarding me," she said, wonder in her voice. "Pack guards while Pack eats," Kiv said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. "This is the way. This is always the way." Hannah felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back quickly, not wanting to alarm the cubs. But the gesture touched something deep inside her. She was far from Earth, far from her family, alone in a space station surrounded by aliens. And yet, here were these three young beings, treating her like she belonged. She ate slowly, savoring not just the food, but the moment. The cubs talked among themselves in their own language, occasionally glancing at her to make sure she was still eating. When she finished one package, Tess immediately pushed another toward her. "I cannot eat all of your food," Hannah protested. "We ate before coming," Kiv said. "This is extra. For emergencies." "Your emergency is now." Hannah accessed her datapad with one hand while keeping the other on Null, who seemed very content to stay in her lap. She searched the cultural database for information about Velhari food-sharing practices. What she found made her breath catch. In Velhari culture, the pack was everything. A pack could not function if any member was hungry or weak. To refuse food from pack members was considered a grave insult. It meant you did not trust them. It meant you did not see yourself as part of their group. In extreme cases, it could be seen as declaring yourself an enemy. By initially refusing their food. She had nearly made a terrible mistake. Hannah set down her datapad and looked at each cub in turn. She needed to do this properly. She pressed her palms together and touched them to her forehead, then extended them toward the cubs. It was a Velhari gesture of deep gratitude, usually reserved for life-saving situations. "I thank you," she said formally. "I was wrong to refuse at first. I understand now. You have shown me kindness, and I accept it with a grateful heart." Kiv's tail wagged. Tess made a pleased chirping sound. Null nuzzled against her hand. They sat in comfortable silence for a while as Hannah finished eating. Her blood sugar stabilized. The dizziness faded. Her hands stopped shaking. She felt like herself again, strong and capable. All because 3 alien children had cared enough to share. "Why did you notice?" Hannah asked softly. "How did you know I was hungry?" Tess tilted her head. "Your scent changed, became weak. Like prey that is tired. Your body made noises," Kiv added. "Distress noises. You moved differently," Null said from her lap. "Like something hurt." "We could see." Hannah nodded slowly. "Of course, they were predators, hunters. They were trained from birth to notice the smallest signs of weakness or distress. They probably knew she was struggling before she fully admitted it to herself. "I am sorry I worried you," she said. "I forgot to eat this morning. I was nervous about meeting you, and I was not thinking clearly." "Why nervous?" Kiv asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Hannah smiled sadly. "Because humans are new to the galaxy. We are still learning how to interact with other species. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted you to like me and to like humans. I thought if I admitted I forgot something as basic as eating, you would think humans were foolish." Tess made a sound that might have been laughter. "All species forget things. Elder Voth forgets his reading spectacles every day. It is normal." "And you did not seem foolish," Kiv said. "You seemed dedicated. You came early. You prepared everything nicely. You taught us interesting things. Forgetting one meal does not erase all of that." Null patted her hand with his small paw. "We like you already. You smell nice. Like growing things and clean water." Hannah felt her emotions swell again. These cubs were so young, probably equivalent to human 8 or 9-year-olds. Yet they spoke with such wisdom and kindness. They had seen her need and responded without hesitation. They had not judged her or thought less of her. They had simply helped. Can I teach you something about humans now? Hannah asked. The cubs perked up, their attention focused on her. When humans care about someone, when we consider them family or close friends, we call them our pack too. We have different words for it: family, friends, loved ones, but the meaning is the same. We protect them. We share with them. We make sure they are safe and fed and happy. She looked at each cub again, meeting their golden eyes. You have shown me what it means to be pack. And I want you to know that from now on, I consider you my pack too. Not just students, not just part of a program. My pack? Kiv stood up and touched his forehead to hers, a gesture of acceptance and affection. Tess did the same. Noel was already close enough that he just pressed his small forehead against her cheek. Pack, Kiv said firmly. Pack, Tess echoed. Pack, Noel whispered. And Hannah, sitting on the floor of a research room in a space station orbiting a distant gas giant, surrounded by 3 alien cubs who had shared their lunch and guarded her while she ate, felt more at home than she had in months. Outside the window, the gas giant rotated slowly, its storms swirling in shades of purple and orange. Stars glittered in the darkness beyond. The galaxy was vast and strange and full of beings she was only beginning to understand, but in this small room, in this small moment, everything made sense. She was pack. They were pack. And that was enough. The rest of the session went beautifully. The cubs were engaged and curious, asking questions about everything from human music to Earth's moon. Hannah felt energized, no longer distracted by hunger or weakness. When Elder Voth returned at midday to collect the cubs, all 3 of them rushed to tell him about everything they had learned. She showed us whales, Noel said excitedly. They are bigger than our transport ships. And she taught us a human song, Tess added. About stars. Kiv was more reserved, but Hannah could see the contentment in his posture. It was a good session, he said simply, which seemed to be high praise from him. Elder Voth looked pleased. He nodded to Hannah with respect. You have done well, Dr. Hannah. We will return tomorrow at the same time. The cubs touched their foreheads to Hannah's in goodbye, and then they were gone. Hannah sat alone in the empty room, feeling the pleasant exhaustion of a job well done. She cleaned up the learning space, packed away her materials, and headed to the cafeteria for a late lunch. She did not know that everything was about to change. The next morning, Hannah was summoned to Commander Torvik's office. Torvik was a Zentari, a species known for their strict adherence to rules and protocols. He was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and large, multifaceted eyes that saw everything. He did not look happy. Dr. Hannah, he said without preamble, I have reviewed the security footage from your session yesterday with the Valhari cubs. Hannah's stomach dropped. Security footage. She had forgotten about the cameras that monitored all common areas of the station. I see, she said carefully. Is there a problem, Commander? Torvik pulled up a holographic display. It showed footage from yesterday. Hannah sitting on the floor, the cubs pushing food toward her accepting it and eating while they sat around her. You accepted food from minor aliens under your supervision, Torvik said, his voice cold. This violates multiple protocols. You are in a position of authority over these juveniles. Taking resources from them, especially food, is completely inappropriate. Commander, it was not like that, Hannah said, trying to keep her voice calm. I forgot to eat breakfast, and the cubs noticed I was unwell. They offered to share. In their culture, refusing would have been an insult. That is not my concern, Torvik said. My concern is that a human educator accepted food from alien children in her care. How does this look to the other species on this station? How does this look to the Valhari delegation? It appears that humans cannot even manage to feed themselves properly. Hannah felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. The cubs were not harmed. They had more than enough food. And they were teaching me about their culture, just as I was teaching them about mine. I am filing a formal complaint with the Galactic Council's local assembly, Torvik said. This incident endangers the entire exchange program. I am suspending you from your duties pending an investigation. You cannot be serious. Hana said, her voice shaking now. Commander, please. Let me explain this to Elder Voth. He will understand. Elder Voth has already been informed, Torvik said. The Velhari delegation is being contacted as we speak. Hana left the office in a daze, suspended under investigation. The exchange program at risk? All because she had accepted a kind gesture from 3 young beings, who had only wanted to help. She returned to her quarters and waited. She tried to work on other projects but could not focus. Her mind kept returning to the cubs. Would they think she had done something wrong? Would they be punished? Would they lose trust in humans? The door chimed in the late afternoon. When Hana opened it, no one was there. But on the floor outside her door was a small package wrapped in woven leaves. She picked it up with trembling hands. It was food. The cubs had left her food. The next day, another package appeared. And the day after that? Each time, there was no note, no message. Just food carefully prepared and left at her threshold. The cubs were still trying to take care of her, even though she had been banned from seeing them. On the 3rd day, Hana heard voices outside her door. She opened it to find the 3 cubs sitting in the corridor, refusing to move. A station security officer stood nearby, looking frustrated. They will not leave, the officer said. They have been here for 2 hours. I cannot force them to move without causing a diplomatic incident. Hana knelt down to the cubs' level. You should not be here, she said softly. You will get in trouble. We are already in trouble, Kiv said. Elder Voth is angry. But not at you. At the commander who does not understand. The program is stopped, Tess said, her voice sad. They will not let us learn from you anymore. Null pressed against the door, trying to get closer to Hana. Why did we do wrong? We only shared. Sharing is good? Hana felt tears on her cheeks. She reached through the doorway to touch each cub's head gently. You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all. This is a misunderstanding about rules and cultures. But it will be fixed. I promise it will be fixed. How? Kiv asked, and for the first time he sounded uncertain. I do not know yet, Hana admitted. But I will find a way. The news spread through the station quickly. The human had taken food from Velhari cubs. The exchange program was suspended. Formal complaints had been filed. Other species representatives began to weigh in with their opinions. The Prin, a logical species that valued efficiency above all else, saw it as poor resource management. If the human could not maintain her own nutrition, how could she be trusted with young minds? The Kirathi, a warrior species bound by complex honor codes, viewed it as inappropriate dependency. A teacher should be strong and self-sufficient, not relying on students. The Thesk, an insectoid collective species, could not understand the emotional component at all. Food was fuel. One took fuel when needed. Why was this controversial? But the Velhari were furious. Not at Hana, at everyone else. Elder Voth called an emergency meeting with the station's command staff. He arrived with the full Velhari delegation, all of them radiating barely controlled anger. You accuse Dr. Hana of wrongdoing, Voth said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. But you understand nothing. The cubs claimed her. They saw weakness and responded as their instincts demanded. To deny them would have traumatized them, taught them to fear their own generous impulses. Commander Torvik remained unmoved. Rules exist for a reason, Elder Voth. We cannot allow situations where power dynamics are exploited. Exploited? Voth's fur bristled. You think a young human female who had not eaten for 18 hours was exploiting my cubs? She was dying on her feet, trying to be professional, trying to hide her suffering so as not to alarm them. They saw through her pretense because they are perceptive and compassionate. They acted to save a pack member. And you punish her for accepting their help? The room fell silent. 18 hours. Hana had not eaten dinner the night before either. Her condition had been much worse than anyone realized. The cubs have bonded with her, Voth continued. In Velhari culture, this is sacred. You have insulted not just Dr. Hana, but my people's most fundamental values. If this is how humans are treated for showing vulnerability, If this is how cubs are treated for showing compassion, then perhaps this exchange program should end permanently. You would withdraw? Asked another council member, alarmed. We would, Voth said firmly. Unless this matter is resolved with proper understanding and Dr. Hana is reinstated with full apology. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Representatives argued. Protocols were cited. Cultural differences were debated. And in her quarters, Hana waited, hoping that somehow this terrible situation could be fixed before it destroyed everything she had worked for. The tribunal was scheduled for 3 days later. It would be held in the station's main assembly hall with representatives from every major species present. Hana had never been so nervous in her life. She dressed carefully that morning, choosing her formal uniform with the Earth insignia on the shoulder. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see what others would see, a young human woman, barely into her 30s, who had made a mistake. Or had she? The more she thought about it, the more certain she became that she had done the right thing. The walk to the assembly hall felt like a march to execution. Other station personnel watched her pass, some with sympathy, others with judgment in their eyes. When she reached the hall, she found a surprise waiting outside the doors. The cubs were there. All 3 of them, sitting in a neat row, refusing to leave. Elder Voth stood behind them, his posture protective. You are supposed to be in your quarters, Hana said to the cubs, though her heart warmed at seeing them. We go where we are needed, Kiv said stubbornly. Pack does not abandon pack, Tess added. Nol simply reached out and touched Hana's hand with his paw. We stay. Elder Voth met Hana's eyes. They have chosen. I will not force them away. Let the tribunal see what their accusations have caused. The doors opened and Hana entered the hall. The room was large and circular, with seating arranged in tiers. Representatives from a dozen species sat in judgment. Commander Torvik was already present, looking stern and official. A Pring mediator would oversee the proceedings. Chosen for their species' reputation for logical neutrality, Hana took her seat at the center of the room. She felt very small and very alone, despite knowing the cubs waited just outside. The mediator began. We are here to address the incident involving Dr. Hana, human educator, and 3 Velhari juveniles. Dr. Hana is accused of accepting resources from minors under her authority, violating ethical protocols and endangering the exchange program. Elder Voth, you may speak first. Voth stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. He spoke clearly and without anger now, his words measured and precise. The Velhari are a pack species, he began. Our survival has always depended on our ability to care for each other. A pack member who is hungry or injured is everyone's responsibility. This is not just culture, it is instinct, bred into us over millions of years of evolution. He activated a holographic display showing footage of Velhari in the wild, demonstrating pack hunting and food-sharing behaviors. Cubs learn these behaviors from birth. They practice on their family, their friends, their teachers. When they saw Dr. Hana's distress, and make no mistake, she was in significant distress, their instincts activated. To deny them the opportunity to help would have caused psychological harm. It would have taught them that their compassion was wrong. The mediator made a note. Continue. Dr. Hana did nothing wrong. She initially refused their offer, trying to maintain what she thought was professional distance. But she learned quickly. She understood that, in our culture, refusal of offered food from pack members is a rejection. She accepted graciously and with proper gratitude. She did exactly what she should have done. Commander Torvik stood. But she should never have been in that position in the first place. A professional educator should not be so negligent as to skip meals. Then your issue is with human physiology, not with Dr. Hana's choices, Voth countered. Humans require regular food intake. This is biological fact. Dr. Hana has a condition that makes this even more critical. Should we discriminate against her for her body's needs? Now it was Hana's turn to speak. The mediator gestured to her, and she stood on shaking legs. I made a mistake, she said clearly. I was so focused on doing well, on representing my species properly, that I forgot to take care of myself. I have hypoglycemia, which means my blood sugar drops if I do not eat regularly. I was foolish. I should have requested emergency rations. I should have rescheduled the session. She pulled out her medical data pad. But I want you to see what actually happened. These are my medical readings from that morning. She displayed her vital signs. The assembled representatives leaned forward to study the data. Her blood sugar had dropped to dangerous levels. Her heart rate had been elevated. By the time the cubs offered food, she had been less than an hour from potential collapse. If I had collapsed, what would that have taught the cubs? Hannah asked. That humans are weak? That we cannot be trusted? The cubs prevented a crisis. They saw a problem and fixed it. That is not exploitation. That is compassion and quick thinking. The Kirathi representative spoke, his voice skeptical. But you are an authority figure. You have power over these cubs. The dynamic is inappropriate. Hannah shook her head. In that moment, I had no power. I was the vulnerable one. They chose to help me. And in doing so, they taught me something precious about their culture and about the nature of true community. May the cubs testify? Elder Voth asked suddenly. The mediator looked surprised. Juveniles rarely testify in formal proceedings. These are exceptional circumstances, Voth said, and they have much to say. The mediator considered, then nodded. Bring them in. The doors opened, and the 3 cubs entered. They walked to the center of the room with dignity, not showing any fear despite the many eyes watching them. They sat in front of Hannah, and she reached down to touch each of their heads, giving them courage. Null spoke first, his young voice clear through the translator. She teaches us many things, about Earth and humans and how to understand differences. But we teach her one thing: pack is pack. It does not matter if you have fur or skin. It does not matter if you have 4 legs or 2. Pack is pack. Kiv continued. Human bodies are weak compared to ours. We are stronger, faster, have better senses. But human hearts are strong. She fought her weakness to teach us well. She did not want to show that she struggled. We saw anyway. We fought her pride to feed her because that is what pack does. Tess finished. In the wild, pack that does not share dies. Elders teach us this from when we are very small. We practice on family. We practice on friends. We practice on Dr. Hannah because we trust Dr. Hannah. She is safe. She is good. She is pack. The hall was completely silent. Even Commander Torvik seemed moved by the cub's simple, honest words. Then something unexpected happened. A human crew member stood up. It was Dr. Bora, one of the station's medical officers. I would like to add something, Bora said. I have worked with Dr. Hannah for 6 months. In that time, I have watched her work double shifts, donate her ration credits to supply shortages, and volunteer for every difficult assignment. She has never once complained or asked for special treatment. Her hypoglycemia is in her medical file, but she manages it privately and has never let it interfere with her work before. Another human stood, then another. They spoke about Hannah's dedication, her kindness, her willingness to help anyone who needed it. They painted a picture of someone who gave everything to her work, sometimes to her own detriment. Even some non-human crew members stood to speak. A Thesk engineer mentioned how Hannah had helped him understand human communication styles. A Prin scientist talked about Hannah's careful, thorough research methods. A Kirathi security officer admitted that Hannah had once stayed up all night helping him prepare for a family ceremony, explaining human gift-giving customs so he would not offend his human colleague. The mediator raised a hand for silence. I have heard enough. We will deliberate. The tribunal left the room. Hannah sat with the cubs, feeling emotionally drained. They pressed close to her, offering silent comfort. Elder Voth placed a hand on her shoulder. Whatever happens, you have won what matters, he said quietly. You have earned the loyalty of my cubs and the respect of your peers. That cannot be taken by any tribunal. An hour later, the tribunal returned. The mediator spoke. After careful consideration of all testimony and evidence, We find that Dr. Hannah acted appropriately given the circumstances. The cub's behavior was culturally normal and psychologically healthy. No harm was done. In fact, this incident has highlighted an important lesson about cross-species understanding and the universal nature of compassion. Hannah felt tears of relief streaming down her face. The mediator continued. Furthermore, we recommend changes to station protocols. Biological needs must take priority over schedules. Emergency rations should be more easily accessible, and the Velhari are commended for their cultural education of our station. Elder Voth stepped forward. The Velhari officially extend pack friendship to humanity. This is rare. This is precious. We see in humans something we value, the ability to accept help, to learn from mistakes, and to honor the bonds between beings. Commander Torvik stood, and for the first time he looked uncertain. Dr. Hannah, I apologize. I acted on protocol without understanding context. I will work to do better. Hannah nodded, accepting his apology. She looked down at the cubs, who were all wagging their tails in joy. Thank you, she said to everyone. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for listening. And thank you, most of all, to 3 brave cubs who taught me what it really means to be part of a pack. 3 months passed like a dream. The exchange program became the most successful initiative on Kepler 7 station. More Velhari cubs arrived for sessions. Other species began requesting similar programs for their young, and Hannah found herself promoted to Director of Interspecies Youth Education, a position created specifically for her, but the promotion meant little compared to the friendship she had built. Every day she worked with the cubs. She taught them about Earth, about human history and culture and dreams. They taught her about the Velhari homeworld, about hunting and pack dynamics and the poetry of their howling songs. Kiv had grown bolder and more confident. He asked the hardest questions and challenged her to think deeply about every answer. Tess remained thoughtful and observant, often noticing things that others missed. Null was still the most openly affectionate, frequently climbing into Hannah's lap during lessons, though he was getting almost too big for it now, but time was moving forward and that meant changes were coming. The cubs would soon return to their homeworld to begin the next phase of their education. This would be their last week on the station. Hannah wanted to do something special for their final meal together. She had requested special ingredients from Earth, waiting weeks for the supply ship to arrive. Now her quarters smelled of cooking, something rare on a station where most food came from synthesizers. She had prepared traditional Korean dishes, foods from her childhood that carried memories of home. There was tteokbokki, spicy rice cakes in red sauce. There was kimbap, rice and vegetables rolled in seaweed. And there was bunjiaping, fish-shaped pastries filled with sweet bean paste. Her favorite treat from cold winter days in Seoul. The cubs arrived at her quarters precisely on time, as always. Elder Voth accompanied them, but he had been invited to stay this time. This was a farewell meal, and it felt right to have him present. "Welcome to my home," Hannah said, gesturing to the cushions she had arranged on the floor. "Today I share my food with you, as you once shared yours with me." The cubs' eyes went wide at the spread of dishes. They approached carefully, sniffing at the unfamiliar foods. Null poked at a rice cake with one claw. "It is safe?" he asked. "Very safe," Hannah assured him. "But some of it is spicy." "Start with the kimbap." "It is mild." Kiv was the first to try a piece of kimbap. He chewed thoughtfully, his ears twitching. "It is good, different, many flavors at once." Tess tried next, then Null. They all made pleased chirping sounds. Even Elder Voth tried some, nodding his approval. Then Null spotted the bunjiaping. "These look like fish," he said, picking one up. "But they smell sweet." "They are dessert," Hannah explained. "Pastries shaped like fish, filled with sweet paste made from beans. They are a bit hot, so be careful." Null took an enthusiastic bite and immediately yelped, fanning his mouth with his paw. The pastry was still steaming inside, but after a moment his expression changed to delight. "Sweet!" "Very sweet. Good." Everyone laughed. It was a warm, comfortable sound that filled Hannah's small quarters. Kiv and Tess tried the bungee hopping more cautiously, blowing on them first. They both enjoyed the sweetness, though Kiv declared it almost too sweet. Then came the tteokbokki. Hannah warned them it was spicy, but all three cubs insisted on trying it. The results were dramatic. Kiv's fur stood on end. Tess coughed and wheezed. Noel's eyes watered as he lapped frantically at a bowl of water. "Why do humans eat fire?" Kiv demanded between gasps. "It is not fire," Hannah said, trying not to laugh. "It is spice. Some humans love it. I grew up eating spicy food." "Humans are braver than they look," Tess said, still panting. Despite the spice incident, the meal was perfect. They ate and talked and laughed together. Elder Voth told stories of his own youth, of learning to hunt on the Valhari plains. Hannah shared memories of her childhood in Seoul, of snow falling on ancient temples and the smell of street food on winter evenings. As the meal wound down, the atmosphere grew more somber. They all knew what was coming. Elder Voth spoke first. "You understand now, yes? What they did for you that first day?" Hannah nodded. "They showed me that kindness does not need translation. That caring for others is universal?" "More than that," Voth said. "They showed all of us that your species, despite your physical fragility, have pack hearts. This is rare in the galaxy. This is valuable. Most species see cooperation as strategy. But humans, like Valhari, feel it as need. You must care for others or you suffer." "Is that why you extended pack friendship to humanity?" Hannah asked. "Yes," Voth said. "In 10,000 years of space travel, we have never offered pack friendship to another species. But we see in humans something familiar, something that calls to our deepest instincts. You belong among the stars because you understand that no one survives alone." The cubs had grown quiet. Leaning against Hannah, she wrapped her arms around them, feeling the warmth of their fur, the steady rhythm of their breathing. "I will miss you," she said softly. "All of you. You changed my life. We will miss you too," Noel whispered. "But we will not forget," Kiv said firmly. "Pack never forgets." "And we will see each other again," Tess added. "Elder Voth says humans are now welcome on our homeworld. You can visit." "I would like that very much," Hannah said. They sat together for a long time, no one wanting the moment to end. Outside the window, the stars shone cold and distant. But inside this small room, there was warmth and love and belonging. Before the cubs left, they each gave Hannah a gift. Kiv presented a fang he had shed, still sharp and white. "In our culture, this means respect. Warriors carry the fangs of those they honor. I am not yet a warrior, but you have my respect." Tess gave her a bracelet woven from silver-gray fur, her own fur. "This means eternal watching. I will watch over you from far away, and you will watch over me. We are connected." Noel gave her a smooth stone, deep black with veins of blue crystal running through it. "This is from our homeworld, from the river near my family's den. It means you have a place there. You belong." Hannah accepted each gift with tears streaming down her face. She had prepared her own gifts, photos of all of them together, printed on real paper, something rare and precious in the digital age. And for each cub, a small earth plant and a biodoma seedling that would grow with them. "So you remember," she said, "that even small, fragile things can grow strong with care." Elder Voth placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have done something remarkable, Dr. Hannah. You have built a bridge between species. Not through grand gestures or political maneuvering, but through simple acts of kindness and genuine connection. The galaxy needs more of this." The farewells were hard. The cubs clung to her, making soft, whimpering sounds. Even Kiv, who tried to be brave, had tears in his golden eyes. Hannah held each one close, memorizing the feel of them, the smell of them, the sound of their breathing. "Go well," she said, using the traditional Valhari blessing. "Run fast, hunt true, and remember your pack." "We will," they CHO-RUSED. And then they were gone. Hannah stood in her empty quarters, surrounded by the remains of their meal. She looked at the gifts on her desk, the fang, the bracelet, the stone. Physical proof that this had been real, that she had been changed by knowing these three young beings. Her communication console chimed. It was a message from the Velhari High Council, official and formal. She opened it with trembling hands. The message informed her that she had been granted honorary Velhari citizenship and the title of Pack Friend of the First Circle. It was an honor given to fewer than 10 beings in all of galactic history. The message included an open invitation to visit their homeworld whenever she wished and a permanent position as cultural liaison between humans and Velhari. Hana sat down slowly, overwhelmed. Her life had changed completely because she had forgotten her lunch one morning. Because 3 cubs had noticed and cared enough to share. Because she had accepted their help instead of refusing out of pride. She looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a transport ship was carrying 3 cubs back to their homeworld. They would grow up to be teachers, diplomats, leaders. They would share the story of the human who forgot her lunch. And the day they learned that Pack could include anyone with a generous heart. And here on Kepler 7 station, other young beings were arriving for education programs. Other species were learning to see past differences and find common ground. The work was just beginning. Hannah touched the stone from Knoll, feeling its smooth surface and the crystal veins running through it. She thought about how far she had come from that nervous morning 3 months ago. She thought about how much she had learned, not from books or databases, but from 3 children who had seen her weakness and responded with love. Outside her window, a new ship was docking. It carried more students, more opportunities for connection. Hana stood up, straightened her uniform, and prepared to greet them. She was the Pack Friend of the First Circle now. She was the bridge between species. She was the human who had forgotten her lunch and gained a family. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, woven from Tessa's fur. She touched the fang hanging around her neck, Kiv's gift of respect. She picked up the stone, Null's promise of belonging, as she went back to work, carrying their love with her, knowing that somewhere in the vast galaxy, 3 cubs were doing the same. The story of that first shared meal would spread far and wide.